I'm going to talk impromptu, and I'm going to talk on speaking. And I actually started my speech a little earlier, promoting Toastmasters 15 manuals. Okay, and I'm promoting Old Men's Stories. And Old Men's Stories is not a differentiation between Toastmasters, because everything, or almost everything in Old Men's Stories is in one of those manuals. It's more emphasis on who and and where we want to participate with Old Men's Stories. And it's about emphasis on the individual and his journey versus the communication skill to advance. Now, speaking, as I've learned in the last year and a half, is an art form. It's not scientific, and there are no absolute rules for it. There's as many techniques to being a good speaker as there are ways of painting pictures. And I found the most fascinating for me, and this is all personal because art is personal, is I love storytelling. I love my own stories, especially, but I love to listen to people's personal stories, especially when they're done well. If someone tells a life story that's exciting, man, I'm all ears. I'm just sitting there, just glued. And love to do it. It's about bragging. Every one of us loves to brag. We do. The other day I said us men like to brag, and I was corrected. Wasn't I here? Someone says, the lady says, we love to brag too. We all love to brag. But we want our chance. But we love to listen to others. And if they tell great stories, we're just thrilled. And if they tell terrible stories, we're bored. Well, the object of Old Men's Stories is to teach people to tell phenomenally wonderful, wonderful stories. And it's the same story they told before dully. It's just emphasis, expressions, how you introduce it, millions of ways. So in Old Men's Stories, which we had our first podcast on Monday, and it was myself and Jeff Young. Jeff Young works for Mentor Graphics right across the freeway, and that's where I met him at Toastmasters in Fremont here, and that's on Monday at noon. And Jeff is Chinese, very American Chinese. You can't pick any accent up. He's been, I think, maybe third or fourth, fifth, maybe, I don't know what generation American. The Chinese have been over almost as long as any of the people from Europe. Probably, if I get my facts right, that Indians come from that part of the world, the American Indians. So they were here thousands of years before. But Jeff brings a totally different storytelling technique to the whole process. And it's wonderful. It's just absolutely wonderful listening to him. And even actually listening to me, because I don't listen to myself when I'm telling the story. I don't get the whole thing until 2 days later when I listen to it. If I listen to it right afterwards, I'm so critical about myself that I don't hear the words. But if you put it aside and you listen to it, a few days later, a week later, or even a year later, oh wow, that was pretty good. Or that was terrible. Whatever you do, whatever you want. But I do tell good stories. I love telling good stories. In fact, I'm an absolutely phenomenally great storyteller. Okay. And this comes from one of the positions in storytelling is the positive I. It's about us. It's about our pride in ourselves. And if you state something, you live up to it, whether it's negative or whether it's positive. So when I brag about being a great storyteller, it says two spots. One, it tells me I'm a great storyteller so I can get it. And two, okay, it sets an expectation up on my listeners that I'm a good storyteller and a great storyteller. So I love bragging. I love to hear bragging. And I love people living up to their bragging. And Old Man Story's about that. First day, the storytelling techniques. What we did is we decided, even after the first day, we listened to it and we said, what are we going to do? And I have these visions in the morning, and all this cool stuff goes through my mind. And if I'm quick enough, I can open up my little phone and write down the little notes, and then I can read them later. Normally, they just sort of fly by and they're gone. Well, this is one of those things where the thoughts stayed with me into the day. And what it was attribute, okay? I can remember the two words now. Attribute and attitude. And I said, the first part of our communications, our radio communications, will be attitude. And the second will be attribute. The attitude is the mental position you put towards it. And the attribute is a technique that you use. And I went to Jeff and I thought, the way I thought and the way I thought. He says, attribute's wonderful, but attitude I don't know about. And when I walked into it, I says, well, I love attitude, but I don't know if attribute will work. And when he said that, I says, I got it. Those are the right words. And what it's about, the first part of it was, we're all master storytellers. And it was a position that I told a story on. I have 30 minutes now, right?
30-minute wrap up.
And it was about the emphasis of assumed positioning on things. It's the same as I just said on telling you I'm a great storyteller. So that was the first half. And the second half, okay, was about enthusiasm in your speaking. And a lot of these words, enthusiasm, sit down and really try to explain. It's a word that you really know, but you can't explain. It's like love. There's a whole bunch of words you can't explain. Well, enthusiasm in doing stuff, and you can sort of pick at it, was the attribute of our first week's Old Men Stories talk. So the next one, we have two other wonderful things. And it's on Mondays, 2 o'clock Pacific Standard Time. And if you want to get on, you can actually listen to it later. We put it on historical recordings, and you can go into the site and hear it anytime. But it's going to be wonderful. And I'm just so excited, and I'm learning all kinds of new stuff. A teacher always has to stay one lesson ahead of the students, and that's what I'm doing. Thank you.